Okay, so we have the recording started, and nice to see you all again. Welcome to the second weekly meeting. Um, I hope everyone had a nice week last week with the code reviews and the code commit and the collaboration. How did it go? Were there any challenges? How was it for you, Karen?
Yeah, I think it was good. I definitely see in orientation they were very clear, and you were very clear about kind of starting early in the week, which I think was definitely helpful because we did have a few things to iron out with our code. So, but no, I think it went well.
How was it for you, Mike?
Ah, last week was it was kind of an introduction, really. Like you're just warming us up for what will come soon. So, so it was okay. It was okay, but still, I'm not getting carried away. I feel like something big is coming soon.
Yeah, and but it's mostly not about the code. I know I guess from the feedback it was like an easy task, but it's more about getting you familiar with Git, with GitHub, with collaborating, with pair programming.
Yeah.
So your first week is more like understanding your partners and how they work, how to communicate with them.
Yeah. So I think Sandra was she was great to work with. Um,
All right. So we would go to the demos. Which group would like to go first?
Should we go first since Michael's waiting for his partner?
Okay. You know how the demos work, right?
Could you go for it, please?
Can you mute, Michael? So, yeah. So for the demos, you would you have the URL to the app, then you would do a quick walkthrough of what your team did from the issue, and then after that, do a very short walkthrough of the code part, what you did to get it working, just as maybe within both of them done within maybe 3 5 minutes. Yeah. So you can share your screen and walk us through that.
Do you want to start then, Cassandra, and then I'll do the code, please?
Did you catch that, Cassandra?
No, what did she say?
She said you would, if you could do the demo, and then she would do the code walkthrough.
Okay. I didn't get the explanation on how the demo will work. Is it
Yeah,
like showing the functionality?
yeah. So you would do a demo of what you built. Like, I'm not sure what your team did, but you would demo what you got working on the app. And then after that will be the code walkthrough. You will just explain what you did from the code to get it working. So she wants to do that part. And you just do the demo of like, oh, this is what we did for our app. And she explains the code, and that's it. And then we just have the final part discussion on the code part if anyone has questions.
Okay. Okay, let me go right away to share my screen.
You could also use the demo URL.
I think I'm not familiar with that.
So there should be a URL for how to access your project. It should be on the GitHub page.
Okay, but
If
what
you
if
have,
I am able to access it? Like, what if I can walk you through it? Can you see my screen?
yeah, so you can just run it also locally and show us what you have.
Okay. Okay. Okay, this is the project and okay, first of all, let me start from the issue that we were told to work on. Okay, this mm, mm, okay, our work is basically just to display the list on the page. And so we have to type in the path locally. That's if the navigation links are not working yet. We have to type in the path locally, the list path, and then any user should be able to see the list. I mean, the displayed items on the list. So going over to the UI, okay, this is the landing page kind of, and we'll now have to navigate to the list part. We can type it here, or here is now working using this link. So let me just go ahead and click the link. Okay, now see what we worked on. We're able to list the items that was imported from Firebase, I think. Yes, the hard-coded data. You can hear me, right?
Yeah, loud and clear.
All right, so basically this is what we did to display this list so that anybody that goes to this part can see it.
Okay, cool. And that's just adding the link for the navigation.
What?
That was your task. Your was only adding the link to navigate to the list page.
No, we didn't add the link. We just displayed the items here.
Okay. Okay. It was showing
Link
the
is
list
for the
items.
other. Yes, I think the link is for the other team. We were just able to display the items when you navigate to this page.
All right.
So that's
Now we can go to the code part.
Okay, give me a moment. I'll just get it on my screen.
No, we can't see your screen. Now we can.
You can see it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So here is the code that we wrote to render the items to the screen, like Cassandra has just talked everyone through. So we saw that in app.jsx, we are passing down the data into the list component. So from the list component, which was the one where we were doing, or the list view rather, which was the one where we were doing most of our work, we mapped over the data, took each item in the data and I can hear myself, that's really off-putting, and rendered a list item for each of the items that we've mapped over. We had some feedback about including a key for each of the items that we'd mapped over, which we didn't do initially, but we now know how important that is to React. When you're working with arrays, everything should have a unique key. So with some help from Mike, and we were able to find that each item in the data had its own unique ID. So we use that as the key. And then finally, we are passing down the name as a prop into the list item, because we could see that that was then used in the list item component. So we knew we needed to pass down the name as a prop. I think that's it, unless anyone has any questions for us.
No, that's impressive and a very nice walkthrough. I was going to ask why it wasn't in the list from the HTML tags. There were no list item, but I just saw that in the list item component it renders a list tag. So that's nice. Since Michael is here, do you have any question for Karen and Cassandra? what they just showed?
No. I do not have any question. I think it was a great demo.
All right, awesome. Nice work. Well done. So now, Michael, you have to. Did you say something, Cassandra? Okay.
All right, so I think I have to do both the demo and the code walkthrough.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Okay. Let me just finish. Let me know when you see my thing. Can you see my screen, please?
Yes.
All right. So I think our task was displaying. Yeah, as a user, I want to be able to. As a user, I want to be able to navigate to all the pages in the application by clicking on the links in the nav bar. So these were the links: the home, the list, and the add item. So as you can see here, we're currently on the home screen, which is indicated by a ticker border bottom. So if I click on the list, see on the list page, and then you can see the active link here indicated, and then we'll go to the other one, the add item, and you can also see that here. So that's how we got that working. So going over to the code here. Most of these were already done for us. I think we had this written out. So I think we're just required to add the nav link to each of the links to make it work. I think previously we had let me just sorry, I just want to show. Okay, yeah. So previously we had this was what was there before. So we had the anchors. The anchors were all used inside nav with the hash for a placeholder, and then we had to replace this using the nav link. So let me just go back again. All right, so so we had to add these nav links here, and I think the CSS had been written previously. So the CSS for the nav link that shows, I think that makes the border bottom ticker. I think that had been written previously. So all we had to do was, once we included the nav link and then we added the path to it, which we had to make sure syncs with the path in the root, defined in the root. Once we added that to it, we didn't have to write the class because that had been written previously. So once we added the nav link to it, we got the link working as defined in the user story. So that was
Awesome.
that's that.
Awesome. That's nice.
Thank you.
And how was it working with Sandra to, I know it wasn't a big issue, but how was it figuring out what to do and making the code changes collaboratively with Sandra?
But like I said, she was a very big help. Working with her was easy. We did most of it together. We spoke about everything we had to do, and then either of us just went ahead to. We agreed on person that would work on it, and then anything what we had to walk through what we needed to do and try to understand the functionalities we were included, and if anything she wasn't clear about, or I wasn't clear about, we made sure we talked about it in great details before we went ahead to implement it. So yeah, it was we spent quite a lot of time talking about what we wanted to do before we went ahead to do it. So yeah, she was great to work with.
Cool. Nice. And a question for Michael? Nope.
I would like to ask, where is Nav? Do you know you need to import Navlink from somewhere? Where do you import it from?
All right. Navlink was imported from React Router DOM. Let me, if I can quickly just share my screen again. It was imported from React Router DOM. Most of that code had been written previously for us here. React Router DOM had been pre-installed as part of the skeleton for the project. So as you can see here, the outlet was already imported. I think that is why the other elements in the page are showing. And then all we had to do was import the nav link here and use it to display the links and navigate through them. Yeah.
Could you please scroll to
Thank
the
you.
Could I do it?
top? Why do you have to import for React Router DOM?
Why do I have to import from React Router DOM?
Yes, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, because navlink is an element inside in React Router DOM. Navlink is a navigation function inside React Router DOM.
Yeah,
That's
but you had to import from React Router DOM initially. You have both one for outlet and a different one for Navlink, and that seems like a duplicate to me.
yes. I just noticed that now, and I just made a quick update.
Okay, so let's say so it was a mistake then.
Yes. It was a
Oh,
mistake.
good. Any other question? So
No,
I
thank
guess
you.
you would make a note of that change and probably make maybe in the future or some other time make a different pull request to correct it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome. So moving forward, um, hold on, let me share my screen. So if you go to your the project brief file in your repo, you would find some of these links. So there's a site URL here, which should take you to the live demo or let's say the production URL for your app. So just in case you want to do demos next time, you can show what you have done from this URL rather than maybe local. You can still show your code from your local system, but this one should give us um, what like the how things work.
All right.
Okay, so today we have a learning demo, a learning module on code review, and I would start the slide for that in a moment. So I believe you can see my screen.
Yes.
All right. So today we will discuss code review, which you've had some experiences with it in the last week, which was also actually quite awesome. We would go a bit further and cover in a bit more detail what is a code review, the code review cycle, what makes a good code review, how you can help others review your code, and how you can review others' code, and exploring how to do it from the GitHub interface. And it might be a bit different if you work with other source control like platform like GitLab or Bitbucket. So what is a code review? Code review, it's a collaboration space that allows you to have conversation around um, an issue, a problem, or ticket you are asked to work on with your team. So you have a space to share knowledge and be able to learn from others, or also an avenue for you to teach others what you know. But it's more should be more collaborative, allowing you to ask questions or giving space for other people to ask questions to understand what you are trying to solve and why or how you reach the conclusion for the solutions you made. It also helps you improve as a developer and helps your team decentralize knowledge, because through that, through code review, the knowledge of how a solution was implemented is not just sitting on one person's brain. It's decentralized. Everyone on the team can participate in the code review, ask questions, and get clarity on the solution. It's also a shared responsibility, and through that, you can also improve the quality of the code base that you work in. And the cycle starts from when you open a pull request. You already come up with a solution like you did last week, and you open a pull request and you ask for feedback. You get some feedback. If maybe it could be in the form of questions to understand what the problem is or what your solution does. It could be about understanding how you reach the solution so that they can also learn from the knowledge you used in solving that. Or sometimes it could be making a change, like you got also in the last week that, oh, can you make this change and add a key attribute? And you make those changes, it goes back to the cycle again to where you receive another feedback if it's good or not. And once all the feedback is has been worked on, and you and the reviewer and also the person who made the pull request is fine with everything, then you move to the final stage of merging. I would also like to add, uh, apart from waiting for when your solution is completely ready before you make a pull request, GitHub, for example, gives you something where you can create a draft pull request. So you can start off in a blank state or in an early stage, create a draft pull request, and ask for feedback on maybe if you have issues where you are stuck, or you've made some little progress and you want to ask for early feedback. I think it's a good way for you to ask for early feedback, and then cycle continues like I already mentioned. And a question around that? Okay. Uh, and what makes a good code review? In code review, when you do code reviews, you don't focus a lot on the stylistic changes or like minor changes, things regarding maybe if you are using tabs or spaces, or if you are using semicolon in JavaScript or not. Some of those um, minor debates that could easily be solved with your tool, like an ESLint, for example. So a great code review tries to avoid having those in it, and you try to enforce this kind of standard for your team in your tool, and you go more deep into valuable feedback as to the solution itself. Um, in a code review, you should also be able to try out the feature or the fix in a locally or in a test environment. With your current projects in the Collab lab, you have a test environment. So each pull request you open and each commit you make, you have the code is being built and pushed to a live environment where you can get the URL and test your changes. So that also is one of the characteristics of a good code review. And one of the things to also ask when you do a code review is if you will be able to understand the code a month from now. So like you saw in one of um, the previous slide here where it says it's the function is to improve the code, the quality of the code. So here you are asking if in a month's time you come back to the code, would you understand what the code does? Which you could do this maybe by writing more explicit or clearer code. It could also be through asking questions during the code review. And in in that phase, also during the code review, you try not to blame your colleagues. You try to praise their efforts because it enforces more positive vibes in the team rather than blaming or making condescending comments on pull requests. So, but being kind, applying emotional intelligence helps with also delivering a good code review. And you should always, as a default, to default to approval. By approval, it means uh, when there's a change and there's no major changes. Let's say someone doesn't do some maybe go astray from what is expected of the ticket, and you only have very minor comments, maybe about adding for example, from your last week work, like adding the key attributes or using the name of the element or the ID of the elements for the key rather than the name. So in this case, you will likely approve the pull request and leave a comment asking the person, would you mind or would you consider adding using the IDs for the keys, and this is why it should be this way or why you think it should be this way. And then this gives room for the person to see your reasoning and make the changes and ask for a review or another approval if it's needed. So always default to approval, and because if you always slam a pull request with rejections, the person might also turn out to be defensive on their work because it also took a lot of effort. You should also help others understand your changes in your pull requests, which we will go a bit into detail. And but this includes like leaving in your pull request description, having more clearer details there as to what you are changing and why you are doing that. And also answering all the questions in the pull request before merging. So for running the code, you could run the when you do a pull request, it's always best to run the code to be sure that um, the changes in the code are actually working. You know, this gives you confidence in what you are releasing to production. and you avoid the temptation of skipping a pull request or leaving a comment that says it looks good to me. You know, it's very easy if you work in many teams. It's very easy for you to run into comments like this. And most of the time this kind of comment is used when people just skim through the pull request without really checking if it works, and they just approve it for the sake of approving. It's not always the case, but most of the time that's usually when someone leaves this kind of comment, it begs the question on if they actually reviewed your code. So at least if you reviewed code and it works great, leave some be a bit expressive as to what you liked, or if it's great, or be more expressive and appreciative of your colleagues. The pull request should also include instruction on how you should test the changes or run the code, either locally or in the test environment, which is a case where buttressing the point where we said you should help others understand your changes. So here you describe how they can run the code and how they can test the actual changes you make. And if you are not sure, always ask questions. And also to make your pull requests, to help others review your code and avoid getting this LGTM comments on your pull requests, it's best where you have a meaningful pull request description. And this includes, for example, this includes the title of your pull request. Like this says, add the nav link to the layout component. So when you ask yourself before creating the titles, if you are looking at the issue for the first time or 6 months from now and you just see this title, does it express the intent of the pull request? So this guides you in how you name the component, and it would also help other people in understanding this. And before I move further, any questions? No? Okay. Also, as part of the pull request description, you have all this ball of text. In the pull request description here, you give enough information to help the reviewer understand the code. So not just the pull request title, but also the body where you describe what you've changed. And I see from the last week, most of all this were skipped, and we have templates in the Collab lab, which you see here, and this is just a guiding a way to guide you to write better pull request description. If you join different teams, they might have different templates, and some might not have different template, but this year for us, it should give you an idea of how you should also lay out your pull request. So you have a description to describe what you have and the related issues. If possible, you also put like the acceptance criteria or the changes you made, the type of changes. And then you can leave some screenshots or recording as to how it was before you made the changes and after. Then also the steps on how to test your application. And I know we missed a lot of this in the last week, and I would like to encourage you all to endeavor to put this in the coming weeks, because if as a reviewer and I come to this pull request, I see the title, but no, there's no description. I don't know what it describes or what it's trying to solve. I don't know which issue on the project it's related to, or at least, okay, here I see that it's a new feature, which is good, but I don't see, okay, how does it look before? How does it look after? What are the testing steps? So I would like to see more of this in the coming weeks so that you can also better express yourself when you create pull request. Was that clear?
Yes.
Also, the commit messages is also quite important, especially when you work in a team, writing meaningful commit messages so that when you are going through your commit messages on GitHub or in Git, you can easily find which commit made changes to what. And also self-reviewing your code. As part of your pull request description, you can add a comment on why you are making certain decisions within your changes. For example, maybe Karen decides to use the item name as the key for some special reasons. You could leave that in the description or as a comment on GitHub, and whoever is reviewing can know your reasons beforehand without asking. And if they agree, they can skip that, or if they don't agree, they can also ask more question or ask you to change that. And leaving screenshots or videos on how to test is quite important, like I mentioned before. And you have a list of these tools that would help you in recording your screens or taking screenshots and making highlights on the screenshots. So on GitHub, also when you do your reviews, the UI is quite handy for you to navigate the changes. You have the files changed tab where you can see a list of changes that the person added. So like if there are 3 files changed, you will see the files on that list. The green marks shows the new code that was added. The red highlights will show code that were removed. On the top right, you can also see the number of files that were added or lines of code that were added and what was changed. You can navigate between files with the next and previous buttons. Another way one way to review code pull requests is to go through it by comment. So usually if you work on maybe a slightly bigger feature or changes, you have like 4 comments before you get to the final feature, and each of them are quite independent and atomic. You could go through the review comment by comment, or just review the last changes and see all the files affected. And on the top right, if you do comment by comment, you can navigate between those comments. And while you go through the files, you can mark each file as viewed. Let's say you have a huge pull request with about 6 files changed. So while you go through each of the files, you can mark them as viewed, and GitHub will automatically collapse it, which you can undo. And that way you can keep track of what you viewed. And you can also maybe leave a pull request for a day and come back, and you continue back from where with the files you haven't viewed yet. And if there's a new commit to the pull request, you have this refresh button where you can refresh and see the new changes made by the new commit. So using this as an example again, here you can see the green mark shows files that were added. Here you see what was changed before. We can mark as viewed or skip. You can also, one tip also for reviewing is while you have the pull request, you can make comments here. For example, say this is a duplicate import, for example, and you can leave it as a single comment, or you start a review. When you start a review, you have the opportunity to go through all the files, all the code, and leave comments. And you can leave comments. So this is leaving review comment. And at the end of all the review comments, and suggestions. You can also suggest code changes. I think I can't do that now because this is already the pull request is already met. But why when it's not, when the pull request is still open, you can look at a line of code and make suggestion. You will get the tab to where you can make suggestions to code, and that way it's easier to directly suggest code rather than typing in long words what you want. And after reviewing the files and leaving on the comment, you can go back to this part, finish your review, and you can maybe approve or reject. Let's say I can't see the approve options here or reject option because it's already met, but let's say we approve the pull request and we have some comments. We can say great work, and then when you submit your review, you would be able to have a highlight here of my summary, what I like, and then you see on like a chronological order all the comments I left in your code, and you can mark a conversation as resolved when it's done. That way, any other person that comes back to reading your code can also see what has been resolved and what has not been resolved. So if any comments have been resolved, you can mark them as resolved and proceed that way. Does that make any sense? Any questions around that?
No, thank you.
Yeah, I think that's also so one more thing I would like to mention for the code review is when you have your code ready for review, you have this part on GitHub. You can add reviewers to it, so you can scan for reviewers, and let's say you add Cassandra as a reviewer here. So this is usually how you request reviews on GitHub, right? Rather than sending a lot of messages. You can still DM people for review, maybe if you want them to get a direct message without waiting for GitHub to send them email. But it's easier also if you put their names and then you mark them as review. Now you can see you would add Cassandra as a reviewer here, and she will get a notification from GitHub and go through the files and do the others. Also on GitHub, there's a handy trick where you can put a reference to your issues. So probably on the related issues, you can say, or at the top, you can say the closes with the reference to the GitHub issues you reference. That way, whenever you merge this pull request, it will automatically close the issues. Because if you see here now, you'll still have these two issues open. If I'm looking at this as a product manager, I would still see that this ticket is not, or this issue is not done. And there's no, I don't know what the status is. I could look at the board, which I think here says it's still in progress. And maybe also on GitHub, if you move it to done, it should be able to close it. I'm not sure how it works on GitHub. So done, it still leaves it open. But if you reference this on the pull request you have and you put a closes or relates on the description, when you merge that, it should automatically close this issue. So here I would mark it as done. But first I need to find the pull request. First issue is this, right? Is that correct? Is this the link to the pull request for the first issue?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I think so.
That's it.
Okay. So I'll just close this off. But does what I explained about the using the GitHub interface for the requesting reviewers and also the description on how to close the pull request, was that clear?
Yeah, for the
Yeah.
for closing of the pull request, I'm not sure how you did it. You said while reviewing the pull request, we can close it by adding a comment like this, close and then put the link to it. Is that how? I'm not exactly sure how you do that one.
So on your pull request, you somewhere in the description, somewhere on the pull request description, you can put something like, let's say in the description, for example, you can say closes and then a link to the issue, or even since it's related, you can just put the issue number and say two. If you
Okay.
do it, you see it's related here. So
Yeah.
you can also just copy the URL as well, and you have it there. It will show the same. In this case, you could also use fixes or fix or close. I think there is also another word. I think we can relate. I'm not sure about that one. But you let's say you have something like closes here or fixes with the issue link, or using the pound sign, you can automatically get GitHub give you suggestions.
Okay.
So when you have this and in your description and you match the pull request, GitHub will automatically close your issue without you having to go to do it manually. So those are also one of the advantages of doing that. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. It does.
Welcome. Any other question?
So this is just an incentive to make sure we add all those descriptions and everything in the pull request.
What is an incentive?
No, I just a side comment. I'm like, so this is an incentive to make sure you add all these description related issues, all those parts of it in the pull request while making the pull request.
Yeah. And you can still always edit your comment whenever. So it's not like you have to get it perfectly right at the beginning.
Yeah.
But I would like to emphasize that when working on a team, at least for me, it's very important, like the testing steps, a very good description, and related issues. That way, even if I come back to it in a few months, or if I have a new person on the team, they know how to review the pull request without having to ask 50 questions just to get it done.
Yeah.
Any other question? Okay, so I would just move this other one to done. So we move on to the issues quickly. So for the issue 3, the user story says, as a user, I want to set up a new shopping list so I can start tracking purchased items. And a shopping list is a set of items associated with a specific 3-word token. We need to allow users to start new lists so they can save the things they need to buy. To start a new list, we will need to do a few things. One, you need to generate a new token, then save the token to the local storage. Can you see my screen? Yeah, okay, I guess.
Yes.
So save the token to the local storage and then show the user the list you. So you show the shopping list based on the token. Up to this point, the app has rendered the item in the list associated with the token, my test list. So there's what we already see so far is based on this list. But before we can allow users to make a new list, before we can do that, we have to stop showing them this list, this test list. So your acceptance criteria says you should add this package. There's a this is an added dependency to the project. I think you would have to add this dependency yourself to the project if it's not already there. And then the string, my test list that is in this file, is replaced with none. So users are not automatically subscribed to any list. Then if a user doesn't already have a token, which you can check from local storage, you would have to show a button in the home component that allows them to create a new list. And then clicking this button will generate a new token and save it to local storage using the set list function that is in app.jsx. Once the token has been created and saved, the user is redirected to the list view. And if a user already, if the user opens the page again and they already have this token from the local storage, then the list is automatically they are automatically redirected to the list view where they can see their shopping list. Notes, the generate token function from the shopping list utils should be used to generate the token. More information on this package is in the documentation. And the set list token function takes one argument, which is the new list token. Eventually, the welcome/home page will look like this wireframe. It's good for your whole team to look at the wireframe now, but be sure not to try to implement all of the visible functionality at once. There will be future stories to add those features. So you only focus on adding this create new list button. So I think that's the only thing you would add. And then when you click this button, it should generate the token and then redirect you to the list page. For this story, it is sufficient just to have a simple create list button, although you are not required to save the token to the Firestore. Some teams have opted to also save the token to Firestore when generating a token. So I think here it's optional. You can just save it to local storage or Firestore, but I guess for this, we just use local storage to make that simple. And the questions around this issue?
No, no question.
Okay.
Sounds interesting, though.
So the final issue, as a user, I want to add a new item to my shopping list so I can start recording purchases. So this is just will likely be having a component where you can add new items to the list, unlike showing the default one that you've already seen so far. So users need to be able to add items to their shopping list. To do this, the add item view should present them with a form that allows them to enter two things: the name of the item and an estimate of when they think they will need to buy the item again. The README file from the shopping list API will be helpful as you work on this feature. So do check out the API and see what functions you need there. So acceptance criteria, UI related tasks. The add item view displays a form that allows them to enter the name of the item and select how soon they anticipate needing to buy it again. There should be three choices: soon, which corresponds to 7 days; kind of soon, which corresponds to 14 days; and not soon, which is 30 days. The input that accepts the name of the item has a semantic label element associated with it. So this is for accessibility. So don't forget to add it. The user can submit this form with both the mouse and the enter button and the enter key. And when the user submits the form, they see a message indicating that the item either was or was not saved to the database. So this will be like showing, maybe displaying a label again, or like a toast, depends on how, but just a label should be enough for just showing an alert button. For the data part, the console.log in the add item function in this file is replaced with a function that adds the new document to the Firestore database. That function will be imported from this module, from the Firebase/Firestore module. And the user's not soon choice is used to calculate the next purchase date. If this is already checked, I guess it's most likely done for you, but you can cross-check. Some important notes: when this feature is implemented correctly, new item will automatically show up in the list view, because stream list item gets new data from Firestore every time there's a change. You will know your label is correctly implemented if you click on the label and the keyboard focuses on the related inputs. You should refer to this documentation for info, and users will be able to submit using the enter key if you listen to the right JavaScript events, which is if you are using on key down. And the add item form has the potential to be a lot of scope. The wireframe has several notes related to accessibility and UX. So this should just be the item, how we should likely look, and should guide you on how to implement it. Any question on that?
No, none from me.
No
Right,
question.
Cassandra? Okay. So this week we have Karen and Sandra, and Cassandra and Michael. Who would want to pick? Which issue would you like to work with? Any preference? No preference.
I think they are both interesting, really. No preference though, no preference. But then I don't know if I'm speaking for Cassandra, but then the second one you just described seems more interesting.
So which one do you want to pick?
I don't know. I think it's probably better you just assign to us so we can work with anyone. I'm open to working on anyone. Really.
So you said the fourth one, then I would say you, and so that's you and
Cassandra, you're not saying anything. You like the fourth one? Can't hear you.
Anyone.
Okay.
Anyone.
Okay, so Karen and Sandra would get issue 3, and Michael and Cassandra will get issue 4. I will send a message in the group regarding that. But if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to any of the mentors in the channel. And I think this week, Aris would do the code review. So when you are ready, don't forget the features we described and making everything clear. And I wish you good luck. Any other questions before we wrap up the meeting?
Nah, none from here.
Okay.
No, thank you.
No
All right.
question. Thank you.
You're welcome. I wish you a good week. Enjoy your time and have fun.
Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Thank you. But
Bye.
Cassandra, can we